The morning after what should have been the happiest day of my life, my phone lit up with hundreds of notifications, each one a dagger from the past. Judith, the woman who had shared my deepest secrets in my bed for 4 years, had posted a scathing video, accusing me of using our relationship as nothing more than a ladder to climb to fame and success. Nevaeh never loved me, she said, her voice cracking with what looked like genuine pain. She just used me to build her brand as the perfect lesbian success story. I sat on the edge of the bed in our Brooklyn apartment staring at the screen as the words blurred through tears. Elena, my wife of only 3 weeks, wrapped her arms around me from behind, her voice steady, but I could feel her tension. "What is it, love?" she murmured, still half asleep. I handed her the phone, unable to speak, the weight of the accusation crushing my chest. We had just returned from our small intimate wedding in the Hudson Valley, surrounded by a handful of close friends who truly supported us. The ceremony had been simple yet beautiful, under the autumn leaves, with Elena in a tailored white suit, and me in a flowing ivory dress, exchanging vows that spoke of forever after years of hiding and struggling. Now this. Judith's face filled the screen, her dark eyes filled with anger, and something else hurt that I recognized all too well. The video had already garnered thousands of views, and the comments were vicious. Of course, the famous Nevaeh Thompson used her ex for clout. Now she's married some rich woman and left the rest of us behind. My heart raced as I scrolled through the tags. My book, Breaking Chains, had been a New York Times bestseller for weeks. My podcast, Reaching Out, had millions of downloads, and my TED Talk on coming out had gone viral. Success that I had poured my soul into after our breakup. But Judith claimed I had twisted our story, exploited her privacy for profit without her full consent. The worst part was the kernel of truth in it that gnawed at my conscience. Had I? Elena pulled me into her arms, her steady presence the only anchor in the storm. "We will handle this together," she whispered, her British accent soft and reassuring. But as I leaned into her, I could not shake the flashbacks. Judith and I had met in college at NYU, both young, scared women navigating our identities in a world that still whispered that love like ours was wrong. She was fiery, passionate, from a strict Puerto Rican family in the Bronx who would never accept her truth. I was the quiet dreamer from Ohio with parents who prayed it was a phase. Our love had been intense, secret meetings, late-night talks, promises to one day be free. For 4 years we built a life in secret, sharing an apartment, telling friends we were roommates. The pressure built slowly. I wanted to live openly, to advocate, but Judith feared losing her family, her job at the community center. The fights grew more frequent until the day she chose them over me. I left with a broken heart and turned the pain into words. The book detailed our love, the struggles, the breakup, but I had changed names and asked for her input, or so I thought. Now she said I never agreed to any of this. By afternoon the story had spread to gossip sites. Calls from my agent, my publicist. Damage control, they said. But inside I wrestled with the question, was this my fault? Had my ambition blinded me to the woman I once loved? Elena suggested we ignore it, but I knew silence would only make it worse. I picked up the phone and dialed Judith's number for the first time in 2 years. It went to voicemail. "Judith, we need to talk," I said, my voice shaking. This is not how it ended for us. As I hung up, the guilt mixed with anger. I had paid the price for my choices too, losing her friendship, the peace I thought I had found. Little did I know this was only the beginning of a battle that would test every part of my soul. The rest of the day became a blur of damage control meetings with my team. My publicist advised a careful statement denying the claims while emphasizing empowerment through storytelling. But every word felt hollow as I typed and deleted drafts. Elena watched me from the couch, her eyes filled with worry. "You do not have to do this alone," she said finally. But I felt alone in the guilt that had started to consume me. By evening my family in Ohio had seen the news. My mother's call came like clockwork, her tone sharp and disappointed. "Nevaeh, this is exactly what we warned you about. Public displays bring public shame. Come home and fix this quietly before it destroys everything." Her words cut deep, reminding me of years spent hiding my truth from them, the forced smiles at family dinners, the prayers they offered for my soul. I defended my marriage to Elena, but the call ended with her hanging up in frustration. The social prejudice from my own blood hurt more than any online troll. I spent the night pacing the apartment, replaying every decision that led to this moment. Leaving Judith had been necessary for my growth, but had I really considered how it would affect her? The book had launched my career, but at what cost to the woman who had been my first real love? Elena fell asleep waiting for me, and I watched her peaceful face wondering if my past would now poison our future. The choices I had made for success and authenticity now demanded a heavy price. By morning the media frenzy had intensified, and I knew the real fight was just beginning. The next few days blurred into a nightmare of headlines and hateful messages. My inbox overflowed with demands for statements, supporters who felt betrayed by the drama, and old acquaintances resurfacing with their own takes. Elena took time off from her teaching job at the university to stay by my side, but I could see the strain in her eyes. She had known about Judith, of course, but hearing the accusations laid bare made her question if our love was built on solid ground or my need to prove something. We sat at the kitchen table one evening over cold coffee. "Nevaeh, do you think there is any truth to what she is saying?" she asked gently. I felt a stab of pain. Not in the way she means, I replied, but maybe I did focus too much on the story after we split. It helped me heal and I thought it could help others. But the look on her face told me the price I was paying now extended to my marriage. Meanwhile, my family back in Ohio called. My mother, her voice tight with disapproval. "Nevaeh, this is what happens when you live this lifestyle in the public eye. Maybe it is time to come home and sort yourself out quietly." The words stung, reminding me of the years of conditional love, the prayers, the suggestions of therapy. They had barely acknowledged Elena at the wedding via video call. My father was silent as usual, but I knew he agreed. The social prejudice was not just from strangers, it was embedded in the blood that raised me. I defended myself, but the call ended in tears and more isolation. To escape, I went for a walk in Prospect Park, the fall leaves crunching under my feet. Memories of Judith flooded in. The way she would laugh at my bad jokes, the nights we held each other whispering dreams of a future without fear. She had sacrificed much to be with me, and when it ended I had channeled it all into my career. Now she was fighting back and I could not blame her entirely. The lawsuit notice arrived via email from her lawyer. Defamation, invasion of privacy, emotional distress. She was seeking damages and a public retraction. My own lawyer, Marcus, a sharp, no-nonsense woman in Manhattan, advised me to prepare for battle. We met in her sleek office overlooking the city. "This could get ugly, Nevaeh," she said, "but we have options. The book was published with fact-checking and you have emails," where Judith seemed supportive at the time. But I remembered the last conversation before publication where she had been hesitant. Had I pushed too hard? The internal conflict tore at me daily. Nights were the worst, lying awake beside Elena wondering if my success was built on the ruins of someone else's heart. Elena tried to reassure me, but tension grew between us. One night after a particularly bad day she snapped, "I love you, but I will not be your shield while you battle ghosts from the past." The words hurt because they were true. I was so focused on defending my name that I was neglecting the woman I had just vowed to cherish. Judith's social media posts continued, each one more detailed, painting me as the ambitious villain who discarded her once she was no longer useful. Friends chose sides, some unfollowing me, others reaching out with support. The isolation was suffocating. I decided to record a podcast episode addressing it, indirectly talking about the complexities of past relationships and growth. But the backlash was immediate, more accusations of gaslighting. The pressure from family, society, and now my own wife was mounting. I had to face Judith somehow. The decision to meet through lawyers came after another sleepless night. I knew it would be painful but necessary. The price of my choices was becoming clearer every day, not just fame, but the potential loss of everything I held dear. The mediation was scheduled for the following week in Marcus' office in Midtown. As I prepared, I spent hours going through old emails and messages with Judith, trying to piece together the timeline. There were texts where she said the story needed to be told, but later ones showed her regret as my fame grew. The moral dilemma weighed heavy. Was it consent if given in the heat of shared pain, or did it require ongoing agreement? Elena and I had a long talk the night before. "I am sorry for bringing this into our marriage," I told her, holding her hands. She kissed my forehead. "We are in this together, but you have to decide what you are fighting for, the truth or your image." Her words echoed as I walked into the law firm the next day, heart pounding. Judith was already there, looking thinner, her usual vibrant energy replaced by a hardened stare. Our eyes met, and for a moment the old connection flickered before coldness took over. Marcus and Judith's lawyer, a man named David, started the discussion, calmly laying out the claims. Judith sat silent at first, then exploded. "You took our private moments, the fights, the love, and sold it to the world, Nevaeh. While I was still hiding from my family, you were on stages talking about us like it was your solo journey. The room filled with tension as I responded. I never meant to hurt you, Judith. The book was about my healing and I believed it could help people like us who feel alone. But deep down I questioned my intentions. Had fame become the priority? The discussion turned heated with accusations flying. Judith revealed how her family had seen the book and nearly disowned her, forcing her to lie again. The guilt hit me like a wave. I had not considered the ripple effects on her life while building mine. During a break I stepped out to the hallway, Elena waiting with coffee. She hugged me tightly. You are not a monster, she said, but you have to own your part. Back inside, the conversation shifted to possible settlement. David pushed for a large sum and removal of the book from shelves, which was impossible. Marcus countered with evidence of Judith's initial support. Then in a moment of frustration Judith stood up, her voice rising. This is not about money. I see you with her happy and famous and it kills me because I was the one who supported you when no one else did. You left me behind and now you act like the victim. The admission hung in the air, exposing the jealousy and pain beneath the legal claims. Marcus glanced at me, her expression saying this was key. Unknown to Judith, the meeting was being recorded as standard practice in the office with one-party consent noted in New York law. As the session ended, Judith's lawyer pulled her aside, whispering urgently. The look on Judith's face when she realized the implications of her words was one of regret. She had revealed the suit was more personal revenge than legal merit. I left the office drained but with a glimmer of hope. That night with Elena I broke down. The confrontation had forced me to see the damage I had caused. My ambition had come at the cost of compassion. Family pressure mounted too, with my mother sending messages urging me to settle to avoid more shame. Social media was a battlefield with supporters of both sides clashing. The psychological toll was immense, second-guessing every decision that led me here. Yet I knew I could not go back. The choices were made and now I had to face the consequences head-on. In the days following the mediation, the tension in our home reached a breaking point. Elena suggested a weekend away in the Catskills to clear our heads, but I was too consumed with preparing for the next legal steps. Marcus had reviewed the recording and confirmed it could be powerful if needed, but she advised using it strategically to avoid escalation. The internal battle raged. Was it right to use this against Judith the way she felt I had used our past? The parallel was not lost on me, creating a cycle of hurt that I desperately wanted to break. My podcast numbers dropped slightly, and a few speaking gigs were canceled due to the controversy. The price of visibility in our community was steep when personal drama spilled over. I reached out to a mutual friend who had known us both, trying to understand Judith's side. She told me how Judith had struggled after the breakup, battling depression and family expectations that forced her back into the closet for a time. Hearing that amplified my remorse. I had moved on, built a new life while she was still picking up the pieces. The social prejudice we both faced as lesbian women in America was the real villain, yet here we were turning on each other. Elena and I argued one evening. You keep saying you want to protect us, but you are pushing me away with this obsession, she said, tears in her eyes. I realized then the risk to my marriage. In that moment I chose to prioritize her, pulling her close and promising to find balance. We spent the night talking not just about the lawsuit but about our future dreams of perhaps starting a family, adopting, and continuing advocacy without the toxicity. The next mediation session was scheduled and Judith's team proposed a meeting without full lawyers to try to resolve. I agreed, hoping for closure. At a neutral cafe in Manhattan, Judith arrived alone, her guard up. We sat across from each other, the air thick with unsaid words. Why now, Judith, after all this time? I asked. She looked away. Seeing you marry her, it made everything real. I thought if I could make you feel the pain I felt, it would even the score. Her honesty cracked something in me. I apologized for not considering her consent more carefully, for the book, and for the way I had left things. She nodded, but the hurt remained. We did not solve the legal issues, but the human connection reminded me of the woman I fell in love with. Back home I shared with Elena, who was relieved but cautious. Family pressure intensified when my brother called, warning that relatives were talking, and it was affecting business. The conservative Midwest values clashed with my reality in New York. I had to choose between appeasing them or standing in my truth, a dilemma many in the LGBTQ community face daily. The awakening was slow but powerful. I was not just fighting Judith, but the system that made us enemies. Marcus called with updates. The recording was a game changer. If we released excerpts, it could discredit the claims, but I hesitated, not wanting to destroy Judith further. The moral choice loomed large: what was justice and what was revenge. Each decision carried a heavy price: my peace, my relationships, my integrity. As the days passed, I felt myself changing from the defensive celebrity to a woman seeking genuine reconciliation. The final meeting at the lawyer's office was set for a crisp November morning. I arrived with Elena by my side for support, Marcus leading us into the conference room. Judith and David were there, the atmosphere electric with anticipation. Marcus outlined our position, emphasizing the evidence and the recording from the previous session. Judith's eyes widened slightly when the topic came up. David tried to pivot to settlement figures, but Judith interrupted. Wait, what recording? In the tense exchange that followed, Judith's emotions spilled over again. She admitted under the pressure that the lawsuit was driven by her inability to move on, seeing my happiness as a betrayal. I loved you, Nevaeh, and you turned our pain into your platform while I suffered in silence. The words were raw, exposing the deep wounds. Marcus played a short, non-sensitive portion of the audio to demonstrate without full disclosure. The impact was immediate. Judith's face paled as she heard her own voice revealing the personal motives. David pulled her aside for a private huddle. When they returned, David announced that his client wished to withdraw the lawsuit. The room fell silent. Judith looked at me one last time, her expression a mix of defeat and relief. This ends here, she said quietly. No public statements, no more drama. The unexpected consequence of her outburst in the safe space of the office had forced the truth out. As we signed the papers to dismiss, I felt a wave of mixed emotions: triumph, but also profound sadness for the friendship lost. Outside, Elena held me as we walked the busy streets of Manhattan. You did the right thing by not pushing further, she said. But was it? The recording had been the key, but using it made me question if I had become what Judith accused me of: calculating. That night I reflected deeply on the journey. From the college romance filled with hope to the painful breakup, the rise to fame, the beautiful wedding with Elena, and now this confrontation. Each step had demanded sacrifices: my family ties, my privacy, parts of my soul. Judith, too, had paid dearly: her peace, her trust. The social prejudices we navigated had shaped our choices, amplifying every mistake. My internal conflict resolved somewhat in the realization that growth requires acknowledging the harm, even when unintentional. The news of the dropped lawsuit did not make headlines, which was Judith's silent retreat as requested. My platform remained, but I committed to more responsible storytelling in the future, featuring other voices, not just my own. Elena and I grew closer through the ordeal, our bond strengthened by the trials. Yet the scars remained reminders of the cost of living authentically, in a world quick to judge. Family relations were still strained, but I sent a letter to my parents explaining my truth without apology. The awakening was complete. I was no longer defined by the past or the fame, but by the love I chose daily, and the integrity I fought to maintain. Weeks turned into months, and the storm gradually subsided. I resumed my podcast with a special episode on forgiveness and the complexities of queer relationships, not naming Judith, but speaking from the heart about the price of silence and the danger of weaponizing pain. Listeners responded positively, many sharing similar stories of exes and family pressures that resonated deeply. Elena and I celebrated our first anniversary quietly at home, cooking a meal and dancing in the living room to our song. In that moment of simple joy, I saw the reward of my choices, the life I had built despite the odds. But the journey had changed me, making me more empathetic, less driven by external validation. I heard through mutual friends that Judith had moved on, starting a small nonprofit for LGBTQ youth in the Bronx, focusing on family reconciliation. It brought me peace knowing she was healing too. The betrayal and the confrontation had been a catalyst for both of us to confront our demons. Social media still had echoes, but the majority moved on to the next scandal. My book sales even saw a small uptick from the controversy, ironically proving the point about fame, but I donated a portion to causes that supported mental health in the community. The moral questions lingered in quiet moments. Had I exploited the relationship? In part, yes, by not anticipating the full impact. But my intentions had been to shine light on hidden struggles. The line between advocacy and ambition is thin, and I had crossed it at times. Family dynamics evolved slowly. My mother visited New York for the first time in years, meeting Elena in person. It was awkward but a start, the walls of prejudice cracking under persistent love. The experience taught me that change is possible, but it requires patience and the willingness to pay the emotional toll. As winter approached, Elena and I planned a trip to Puerto Rico to honor Judith's heritage, In a way, visiting places that might have meaning and reflecting on the shared history of struggle for acceptance in America. The drama had forced me to examine every decision, the trade-offs between personal happiness and collective visibility, the right to tell one's story versus the duty to protect others involved. Looking back, the shocking accusation from my ex had nearly derailed everything, but the unexpected turn at the lawyer's office had brought a form of closure. I stood stronger, more self-aware. Yet the question of right and wrong remained subjective. In the end, the price paid by all of us, Judith, Elena, my family, and myself, highlighted the complexities of love, identity, and ambition in a judgmental society. When the pursuit of truth and success collides with the pain of someone you once loved deeply, who bears the greater responsibility, the one who spoke out or the one who stayed silent in the shadows?